Welcome to Next on the Tee with Chris Mascaro, where PGA and LPGA players, legends, and the top instructors in the game share their insights and playing lessons. Join Chris every Tuesday night as he talks with the greats of the game. Tonight's show is sponsored by TaylorMade Golf, the PGA Tour Superstore, Golf Pride, 2 Under, Zexio, Sun Mountain Golf Bags, Finn Scooters, making the game more fun, Bionic Gloves, and the Macklemore Club. Experience life above the clouds. Now, here's your host, Chris Mascaro.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Next on the Tee. I'm your host, Chris Mascaro. And thank you so much for coming back and joining us tonight, and for voting the show up to number 6 in the October edition of Podcast Magazine's Hot 50 list. You all have been so awesome this season. Thank you very much for your support. We've got one goal left to reach, and that's getting to number 1. Please keep voting each day by going online to podcastmagazine.com/hot50. Next on the Tee Nation has been showing out in large numbers, and I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Before we get into tonight's show, I want to remember a great anniversary for a wonderful friend of the show, Chip Beck. Yesterday, October 11th, was the 30th anniversary of Chip's spectacular 59 that he shot at the Las Vegas Invitational back in 1991. At the time, he became only the second player in PGA Tour history to shoot a 59. His round included 5 pars and 13 birdies, which, oh, by the way, was a record for most birdies in a round as well. It was a tremendous feat for one of the nicest and most positive people on the planet. So happy 59th anniversary, Chip. Congratulations to you. What a round. Okay, on to tonight's show, and it's our last show for season number 8, and we're going to go out in grand style with an all-star lineup of 4 amazing guests that are also some of my favorites of all time, and I can't wait to share them with you again tonight. First up is going to be Champions Tour Pro and PGA Tour radio host John Cook. John is a guy that I instantly became a big fan of when he first joined me a couple of years ago. He is such a genuinely good person, and on top of that, a fantastic talent on the golf course and in the booth. We're going to talk tonight about how he was able to make the transition to the booth so seamlessly, from being a tour player, getting up and being in the TV and radio booth. We'll also talk about a new event coming to the Champions Tour in 2022. It's called the World Champions Cup. It's an event that's going to be a mixture, sort of like the Ryder and President's Cup put together. 3 teams, the U.S. team, a Team World, and a Team Europe. I'm so excited that we're going to have an event like this out on the Champions Tour. Really looking forward to getting John's thoughts on that. Plus, we'll reflect back on the Ryder Cup. We'll talk about the work John has done in the past with Patrick Cantlay. And for those of us that are north of our 50th birthday, I want to get a playing lesson from John for how we can stay limber and keep our golf swings fluid as we age, and then really over the wintertime as well. So really looking forward to having John back as part of the show. He'll join me here in just a few minutes. Following him, I'll get a return visit from former PGA Tour pro Tim Simpson. Timbo's been a wonderful friend of the show over the last several years. So excited that he's going to be joining me a little bit more on a regular basis coming up next season. Tonight, I'm going to get his thoughts on the Ryder Cup as well. We'll also talk about his relationship with Sam Snead and J.C. Snead. What was it like working and being around those two guys, having them as mentors? Plus, Tim was known as one of the best ball strikers ever, so we'll get a tip from him on how to get center club face contact more consistently. Looking forward to having Tim back as part of the show. He'll join me about 20 minutes from now. Following Tim, Champions Tour pro Olin Brown will be here. I'll get O's thoughts on last weekend's Furyk and Friends tournament that he played in. We'll also talk about sort of the non-glamorous side of playing out on tour, what it's like to be away from your wife and family for long stretches of time. How do you keep it fun versus allowing it to turn into a grind? Plus, I'll get his thoughts on the opportunity to be a part of that U.S. team at the World Champions Cup next year. Looking forward to having O back as part of the show. He'll join me a little bit later on in this hour. Then we'll round out tonight's show with a return visit from a guy who's become a really close friend thanks to this show and Twitter, and that's former actor and now host of Backspin Golf, Matthew Lawrence. Over the last few years, when I've thought about which guest do I want to be the last one you hear for the season, it's either been Matthew or his 4-minute older twin brother, Mitch. Matthew and I are going to reflect on his award from the Kentucky section of the PGA of America. Last year, he was their media representative of the year. I'll also get his thoughts on the Ryder Cup, and if anyone did more for their personal brand during that Ryder Cup event than Bryson DeChambeau did, Matthew will join me about an hour from now. So there you have it, folks. More great stories, tips, and information are coming your way tonight on this final edition of Season 8 of Next on the Tee. Thank you so much for tuning in and taking the journey with me tonight. Before we get started, I want to remind you about our friends over at the Macklemore. My buddies and I were there for our annual trip a little while ago, and it was amazing. Everything about the place is first class. We had great accommodations. The practice facility that they have there is fantastic. The on-premise restaurant called The Craig has outstanding food and service. And the course lived up to every great expectation that we had for it. I can't say enough great things about the Macklemore. Go online to themacklemore.com to see how spectacular the place is for yourself. The golf course is co-designed by our good friends Bill Bergen and Reese Jones. Our friend and PGA Tour caddy Kip Henley said, outside of Pebble Beach, it's the most beautiful 18th hole he's ever seen. And Golf Digest agreed, by the way, naming it the best finishing hole in America since 2000. See why we're all bragging on it so much by checking out the course and the resort online at themacklemore.com. And folks, this segment of the show is brought to you by TaylorMade and their TP5 and TP5X golf balls. High draw? Check. Low fade? Check. Bump and run? Out of the sand or flop shot? Check, check, and check. No matter what shot you need to pull off, there's one ball that's better than them all, and that's the all-new TP5 and TP5X from TaylorMade. With a newly redesigned dimple pattern that decreases drag and increases lift, it's the number one ball in golf no matter the shot. So whether you need to hit it high over the trees, under, or maybe even through them, hit TP5 or TP5X, the one ball designed to handle it all. Check them out online at TaylorMadeGolf.com for more information. Okay, now back in Next on the Tee with me is Champions Tour Pro and SiriusXM radio host John Cook. John is from Toledo, Ohio, but grew up in Southern California. He went back and played his college golf at Ohio State, where he was a three-time All-American. He helped them win 3 consecutive Big Ten titles from 1977 to 1979 and the 1979 National Championship. He won 6 individual titles while he was at Ohio State. He also won the Les Bostad Award for the lowest stroke average in the conference each year from 1977 to 79. He was inducted into the Ohio State Hall of Fame in 1986. John won the U.S. Amateur Championship in 1978 and finished second to Mark O'Meara in 79. John won several amateur championships, including the California State Am in 1975 and the Ohio Amateur in 1978 and 79 as well. He turned pro later on in 79, got his first win on the PGA Tour in 1981 at the Bing Crosby National Pro-Am by beating Hale Irwin, Bobby Clampett, Ben Crenshaw, and Barney Thompson in a playoff. He won again in 1983 at the Canadian Open, this time beating Johnny Miller in a playoff. In all, John won 11 times on the PGA Tour and 10 times so far on the Champions Tour. He has 7 top 10 finishes in majors. He was named the 1992 PGA Tour Comeback Player of the Year. In 2013, he was inducted into the Southern California Golf Association's Hall of Fame, and I'm excited to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, John, thanks for coming back on the show.
Well, Chris, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on your last show this season, and with Tim Simpson, Nolan Brown, and what a lineup! Really, I'm honored. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate you, John. So, John, catch us up. Last time we had the privilege of spending some time with you was back at the end of March. And for a guy who has 3 jobs now, I mean, you play on the Champions Tour periodically, you're in the broadcast booth, you're on the radio on SiriusXM. You got to be busier now than when you were a full-time player on the PGA Tour. How are things going?
Well, I'll tell you what, Chris, it's awfully nice. It has been busy. I didn't think retirement was going to be this busy, actually. I retired from playing competitive golf really a couple of years ago, and I'll dabble in 1 or 2 a year, and that's about it. But Golf Channel has been keeping me busy, and thankful for that. They took a chance on me a few years ago, and they've kept me on board. And of course, with Sirius being on Craig Cahn's show every Wednesday evening, on his show, we've kind of kept that going. We did a show together for a couple of years, and I did a show by myself for a year. So it's nice to be back on his show and periodically on some of the other shows. So yeah, I am pretty busy. It's amazing that my wife keeps reminding me that in this career she never thought I would ever talk this much. I'd hardly ever talked for the first 40 years that we were together, and now the last 5 that we've been together, I'm talking all the time. So it's kind of shocking to her, but it's kind of fun.
And John, you are so good in the booth on Golf Channel, or whether it's on, when, like you say, your previous solo show on Sirius XM, or the time that you and Craig spend together now. Talk about the transition from being a player to being in the booth. Was that hard to do, or did it come naturally for you?
I can't say it came naturally. I had, a great mentor, on the golf course with Ken Venturi, but I paid a lot of attention to him while he was doing the telecast, and we talked a lot. I never thought I'd get into this side of the business, honestly. When Golf Channel took that chance, and I worked a little bit, for NBC early on. I would say yes and no. Yes, in the way that, you have a boss, you have a producer, and you have people in your ear. And that was kind of interesting to get used to, with just people talking over myself talking. And once I kind of got the hang of that, and just kind of learned how to phrase things, a little bit shorter, not too long-winded, but give enough information that, it's interesting. It's basically just like you and me talking golf. I want to be talking just what I'm thinking out loud. And I was always a player of simple thoughts, simple ideas, simple routine. And I tried to keep that simple when I'm in the booth or on the golf course, calling a shot. So it's just like you and I talking golf. And that's the way I want it to feel, relaxed, just like we're up, buddies out just, chatting away, or watching golf. If I'm watching golf with a couple buddies, that's how I would want to talk about what shot is happening in front of me. So once I learned that and learned to relax in the booth a little bit, and watch the pros, we get to work with such great people, Chris. Whether it's Bob Papa, George Savaricas, Steve Sands, and of course Lanny Watkins, Billy Ray Brown. I mean, it's such a great crew that I get to work with on the PGA Tour Champions. It makes it fun. It makes it easy. The producers are always fun. They keep things light. They keep things relaxed, and it just relaxes you even more. So, transition, I wanted to stay in the game. I wanted to talk about the game. I, love this game, have since I was a kid. And I just really wanted to kind of portray that and get that across to the listeners, and, gain their trust and maybe gain their respect a little bit.
And John, sometimes when you're either on the Golf Channel or doing your radio show, you're kind of put in the position where you have to be critical of a player, maybe a shot that they hit or something they've done. Was that hard? Was it, you were out there, you were one of those guys, and now sometimes you're in a position of being a little critical of one of them. Was that tough?
A little bit, Chris, to be honest. I was more critical to myself than anybody. I was, overly harsh a lot to myself, and people that played with me or worked for me or was around me, pretty much understood that. But it's not difficult to call a shot, a poor shot, a misplayed shot, wrong side. But I think I can do it in a way that it's not personal. It's just observational, and get that point across that, that's not what he was looking for. He certainly didn't want it there. If you're in this position, you got to be looking 25 feet right of the hole, stuff like that. I think that the guys, if they go back and listen to it, know that I'm not critical of them personally. I'm just calling the shot as I would tell myself. Oh, no, you don't want it there. You big dummy, don't hit it there. And I think that they understand that. They appreciate it. I haven't had anybody ever come up to me and say, hey, you know what, you really called this one, it's really hurt me. They say that, you call it right. You call it as you see it. You call it as you played it. And I think that they respect that. I don't ever want to be personal, calling a shot.
John, we've been talking a lot about the Ryder Cup on this show over the last several weeks, and we went into the event wondering if some of the members of the U.S. team could even stand to be in the same team room together. And then we exit the event thinking that, this team, they're young, they could dominate the Ryder Cup now for the next several years. What did you think about what you saw, and how did that compare to what you thought was going to happen versus what actually transpired?
What I thought was going to happen was that they were all going to band together. Steve Stricker is that type of guy. He will get guys to band together for a common cause, and that's what the captain is supposed to do. Then it's up to the players to perform. Bottom line is the players don't perform, the captain gets the loss. That's unfortunate, but Steve Stricker did a great job of getting that team room and getting those pods, the right people, the right players in those 4 pods to play as they should, the 3 pods. I'm sorry, and they did. They performed, and he makes him look like a genius, and he kind of was on putting the personnel together that he needed to win the Ryder Cup and to dominate the Ryder Cup. And certainly they went out, day one, match one, and man, this team looks driven. They look motivated. They look like they're concentrating and executing, and they were having some fun along the way. And that's what's been missed is, kind of that. It's just having fun, while you're playing, which is, it's tough when you're getting your rear end handed to you. It's not much fun to lose, that's for sure. But that's what I saw, Chris, is they banded together. The pairings were dynamic. The pairings were spot on, every single one. You knew that Patrick Cantlay was going to play with Xander Schauffele in the foursomes. You just knew that because they play together all the time. They play practice rounds together. You knew that partnership was going to go. You knew some of the other ones were going to be perfect. And you know what? The guys executed, and they did it, masterfully. They wanted it badly. And another thing that you got to remember that none of these players really, first of all, they hate to lose, obviously, but they're not used to losing. So that was a little bit different mindset going in. This is, why do we have to lose all the time? Well, I've never lost. And so that's why it made it even more important that this one turned out the way it did.
And John, you mentioned Patrick Cantlay, and here's a guy who had a tremendous year, winning 4 times, including the Tour Championship here in Atlanta. He won Player of the Year honors. And then he goes to the Ryder Cup and goes 3-0-1, including beating Shane Lowry 4-2 in the singles matches. I know he's a guy that you've worked with in the past. Talk about his progression as a player.
Oh, Chris, it's amazing to see someone like Patrick, come along. Known Patrick now since he was a mid-teenager at Virginia Country Club in Jamie Mulligan's program, his junior program he grew up in. He was always hanging around, the guys that Jamie was working with at the time, including myself, Paul Goydos, John Mallinger, John Merrick, Pete Tomasulo. They've all come through that system. And to see Patrick around and, going from a skinny little kid into growing into a young man to growing into a grown man, has been just amazing. He was always there asking questions. He was always wanting to get better. He wanted to join our groups. He had no problem, us hitting it, that far by him, because we knew at some point that wasn't going to last. So, it was just great to be around Patrick, see him, how he progressed as a player, how he progressed as a young man into a gentleman. Pretty proud of Patrick, and, not just on the golf course and what he's done, and he deserves all the credit that he's been getting because he's an incredibly hard worker. He knows exactly where he wants to go in this game, and he's doing it the right way. It's not, one big flash in the pan. He has progressed to this point to earn all these accolades that he's been earning. But off the course, he had, some very serious personal issues. Remember talking to him when just after his great friend, was unfortunately got killed in a car accident, got hit by a car right in front of his eyes. That really hurt him, obviously, quite a lot, as he was also battling some real prominent back issues. We talked about him wanting to keep playing, or if he wanted to play. And I remember, saying to him that you'll never know unless you give yourself that chance. If you love the game, it'll come back to you, but you have to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, Patrick, you can go on and do anything, and you'll be great at whatever you want to do. But, if you want to play, this is how we're going to have to go about it. And, he certainly has done that, and he's, given his best, to stick to his program, to stick to his system. And it's worked out great. Very happy for Patrick.
And John, with all the hype and the excitement around team events like the Ryder Cup, the Solheim Cup, the President's Cup, the Walker Cup, things like that, I kept wondering, why don't we have a similar event on the Champions Tour? Fans like me would love to see you guys rekindle those old rivalries. And now we learn about the World Champions Cup, which is set for next November, so November of 2022. And boy, I couldn't be more excited to watch it. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it, and if that's something that you're excited about as well.
Oh, absolutely, Chris. I think the event is going to be a great event for all of golf. It's going to showcase to the world the 50s and overs. I think I'm a little bit past that, so unfortunately I won't get to participate. But to have the idea come to fruition with Ernie Els, Darren Clarke, and Jim Furyk as the captains of the three teams. So we were going to have a rest of the world. We're going to have a Europe and a U.S. Team. I think is great because there's some great players from around the world that are 50 and over that have had great careers, and we just you get that second chance to prolong your career, and you have players like Ernie Els and Darren Clarke and Jim Furyk committing to the PGA Tour champions and focusing on the PGA Tour champions. That says a lot about what that product is all about, and I think to showcase that late next year, I think it is a wonderful thing. It's going to be a great event, and like I said, it's just going to give great exposure to what you can do after the age of 50. You don't have to hang them up. These guys are still really good and playing some great golf. So it'll be very, very interesting. And I think it'll be fascinating to watch.
And John, talk about match play and your experience doing that. From a strategic perspective, how is match play different than stroke play? Was your strategy, was it different from shot to shot based on what your opponent just did? Or did you go out with a mindset to say, hey, look, I'm going to shoot the best score I can on each hole, and however the chips fall, they fall?
So how I approached match play, Chris, was maybe a little different, but it worked for me. I was successful in a lot of match play. So I would go out in each match early on and just try to beat the golf course, not give anything away, just don't give things away. I wanted to beat the golf course. And if I was beating the golf course, I was probably going to be close to either leading in my match or tied or very, very close. Then I would adjust. Then I would get down to what do I need to do to win this hole? It doesn't really matter, what I make on the hole. How am I going to win this hole? And that may not have come along until, early in the back nine on, then playing the player to finish the match out. So I figured if I was beating the golf course, I had a really, really good chance to be up in the match, and then I would adjust to close the match out.
John, switching gears a little bit, one of our mutual good friends is former NFL safety Vency Glenn. Vency and I were talking a while back, and he told me a story about you making double eagle at the Green Monkey Golf Course down in Barbados. Talk about playing golf with Vency and that shot.
Oh my, that takes us way back. We were there for Tiger Woods' a wedding weekend, and we were fortunate enough to be invited down there, and we had a great little golf outing on a course that wasn't even open yet, the Green Monkey down there in Barbados at Sandy Lane. It was a wonderful, wonderful golf course, and we had a blast. So I was playing with Vency. I was playing with Tiger's trainer at the time, Keith Clevin, and Mark Steinberg, who was our agent. And sure enough, we get around to one of the par fives. Now, I won't say what else was going on while we were playing in this event, but there was little stations here and there where you could sample some different things. And this was getting towards the end of the day, and I had sampled a few things. And sure enough, I had never made a double eagle in my life. And yeah, I got up there and hit a driver 4-iron right in the hole. And I looked at the guys, and they went, oh, so you got a new routine, huh? This is what it takes. And then the next hole was this like long par 3 that I almost made a 1. So I made I hold a 4-iron and almost hold a 3-iron back to back. And, that's when, Vince, we had a greater appreciation for what professional golfers could do. We go back. Vince was a great guy. We had a lot of great talks about, what he did in his career, and, how much I appreciated, the professional athletes and what he did. So he became a good friend.
John, we mentioned your time at Ohio State, and I want to go back as a kid from Southern California. Going out to Ohio State, as I recall from our previous conversations, Jack Nicklaus, Tom Weiskopf were a generation before you there, but very influential in your decision to go there. Talk about how they convinced you, a Southern California kid, to go to Ohio State.
Yeah, it was interesting. Jack wrote me a wonderful letter, a note, and this is way back when alumni could actually help in the recruiting process. It has come back that way, but, there for a while, that went away. You couldn't do that. But Jack wrote me a wonderful letter. It wasn't just it was explaining why, the good about, what program was about Coach Brown, because, Coach Jim Brown played just after Jack and with Tom. So they were quite friendly. So Jack's letter was, of course, kept that, got to keep that. But Tom would give me a ring, maybe once a week or every couple of weeks. The phone would ring. We'd be sitting down to dinner, and the phone would ring, and sister or somebody was going to get up and answer it, and they'd go, "Hey, it's Tom's on the phone." And I didn't have any friends that were really named Tom, and once we figured out it was Tom Weiskopf, and we he took the time to call me, and we chatted a few times. And that, not that sold me on the school, because when I went back for my visit, that sold me on the school, making the decision, a couple months later that I would attend Ohio State. But Tom was very influential, and we maintained that friendship and that acquaintance, for quite a long time, through college, through my first years on tour, through his last years on tour. We played a lot of practice rounds together. We talked a lot about course design and paying attention to the golf courses that you were playing, and understanding what the architect was trying to do, and understanding things about that, because it was fascinating to talk to Tom about golf course architecture, way back in those days. So it was, I learned a lot from Tom, and we hope he's doing well. He's gone through some real personal stuff with his health, and we just wish the best for Tom, because he, Lanny Watkins and I talk about it all the time. Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? I mean, it's kind of crazy. I know he's got one major, and he's runner up at the Masters 4 times, and maybe he needed one more major, but he's got 17 wins. He's such a great influence in the game, as far as ball and going head to head with Jack and Lee and Raymond and, the greats of the game. We just kind of keep chiming in on Tom Weiskopf should be in the Hall of Fame.
John, just a couple more before I let you go, and I want to get a playing lesson from you for those of us that are north of our 50th or even 60th birthdays.
Yes,
what advice do you have? What advice do you have to stay flexible and keep our golf swings fluid, and from getting too short and losing distance? How can we keep everything sort of moving in a nice direction and not lose too much yardage off the tee?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Chris. Is you have to maintain your mobility and flexibility. And as I was turning 50, I was kind of losing that. So I started working with a great therapist doctor named Tim Brown out in Newport Beach. Just a guru of a lot of that, keeping mobile and flexible. He worked on some of the greatest athletes that you would ever know. I mean, his list is a who's who, I promise you. And he got me in touch with a trainer named Justin Franson. And between the three of us, or the two of them, they put together a program for me just to maintain mobility and flexibility. As we age, we get shorter. We've done all we've done is hunched over, for how long we played the game of golf. So we just kept working backwards. We kept opening my shoulders, opening my hips, working on fast twitch muscles, do a lot of footwork, a lot of hand-eye coordination type stuff. But we were always working backwards. Get on the big exercise ball and just stretch that back and get those shoulders open, get those hips open. And that worked for me for, so long until I just decided I was, going to maybe cut down on my competitive golf a little bit. But, as we age, Chris, it's so important to maintain that mobility and flexibility, and use that to your strengths.
John, remind our listeners about your shows and how they can stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, whether it's online or it's on social media.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I do. I join Craig Can every Wednesday evening at 7:30 Eastern on his show for a segment or two, and we talk about things that are going on during the week or what happened over the weekend. So great fun to have that on PGA Tour Radio at. He's on from 7 to 9, so that's a nice little 2-hour window. Then I do all the PGA Tour Champions events for Golf Channel. Sit in the booth now. I don't go out on the golf course much, so I'm in the booth with Lanny Watkins and whoever our host of the week might be, and that is usually Bob Papa or George Stavroukis. Whit Watson also joins in. Steve Sands as well. So we got a great host, and of course Billy Ray Brown is on the course. So whenever there's a PGA Tour Champions event, I'm sitting in the booth. And then I played a couple weeks ago at the Pure Insurance Championship at Pebble Beach for my one and done. I unretired and went back into re-retirement for a week. So made the cut. So hey, that was kind of fun. But those are the things basically that I'm doing, keeping me busy, keeping me talking about our great game of golf, and hopefully you can hear the passion in the way that I announce and the things that I talk about, because I'm so lucky to have had this game and had the support system around me to play this game for as long as I did and be supportive of that. And like I said, I'm as lucky as can be to, never have had to really work, just go play. And it's been a godsend, and I'm lucky and thankful for what I have.
Well, we can definitely hear the passion in what you're doing. You're outstanding. John, before I let you go, and I said this to you last time, but it bears repeating, and it's from your SCGA Hall of Fame speech. You said, "My mentor and close friend Ken Venturi once told his dad he was really good at golf. And his dad replied, when you're good at something, tell people. But when you're really good at something, they'll tell you." Well, let me tell you,
right.
You are a really good player. You are a really good broadcaster, and you're a wonderful guest in person. And I can't thank you enough for coming back and being part of the show tonight.
My pleasure, Chris, and I congratulate you on all your accolades. It's a great show, and you deserve everything that is coming your way. I appreciate you having me anytime.
Stay safe, John. All the best to you and your family. I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Absolutely. Anytime.
See you, John. Take care. That's the great John Cook. And folks, it just doesn't get better than John Cook. What a wonderful human being he is. You can definitely hear the passion when you're watching him on the Golf Channel or on Craig Can's show. And like I say, they used to do it together. John did it on his own for a little while. But everything about the guy is just nice and genuine, and he just couldn't be more of a pleasure to be around. Great golf career, great broadcaster, and look forward to catching up with John again next season. Before I get to my next guest, Tim Simpson, I want to give a shout out to a few of our sponsors, starting with our friends over at Squares Golf. Are you like me, always considering new golf equipment, maybe a new driver? Well, let me reset your thinking, because I discovered Squares golf shoes. The patented Square Toe provides balance, stability, and a wider base for increased connection to the ground, effectively increasing your swing speed by 2.2 miles per hour and an average of 9 yards of distance. Independent testing proves it. That's right. It's proven in science. Go to squares.com. That's SQAIRZ.com and get Square's 30-day money-back guarantee. Use promo code DISTANCE for $20 off. Remember, distance comes from swing speed, and swing speed comes from your connection to the ground. And folks, I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't experience it for myself. I've never felt more stable in my golf swing, which allows me to swing faster and launch it further. Squares, the distance golf shoe. I also want to remind you about our friends over at Bionic Gloves. Whether you're looking to own the golf greens, improve your workouts, or get your hands dirty in the garden, Bionic Gloves have you covered. Designed with a hand specialist, Bionic Gloves feature patented innovations that help improve your grip. The strategically placed anatomical relief pads also help prevent calluses and blisters, while the web and motion zones allow for greater dexterity and flexibility. Head over to BionicGloves.com to find the perfect glove to up your game. And this segment of the show is sponsored by our friends over at Zexio. In 2001, Zexio Srixon began making clubs for men and women, and they've improved on those clubs every year since. I was fit for a set of Zexio 10 irons by a great fitter on their staff. He got me dialed in, and they feel and perform fantastically. They are light. I've picked up nearly 5 miles per hour in swing speed, and they're deadly accurate. Every part of Zexio clubs are made exclusively for Zexio. Everything is light and balanced. Swing weights are made to give us the highest smash factor. And the best part of getting fit for Zexio clubs is hitting it higher and straighter than ever before, changing your game. Zexio clubs are a Golf Digest Hot List Gold winner for 2021. NB Park is a Zexio ambassador, as are Ernie Els and top instructor Martin Hall. See why and how Zexio can help your game as well. Go online to ZexioUSA.com. That's XXIOUSA.com and pick which set is right for you. Okay, now back in making his 6th appearance with me here on Next on the Tee is one of the all-time great ball strikers and human beings on the planet, and that is Tim Simpson. Tim is from right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Played his college golf at the University of Georgia, where he lettered in 1975 and 76. During his time there, Tim was named All-SEC, All-American, and a college All-Star. He turned pro in 1977. He won 4 times on the PGA Tour at the 1985 Southern Open, the 1989 USF&G Classic, and back-to-back years at the Walt Disney World Oldsmobile Open in 1989 and 90. He's also won the Georgia Open 5 times and the Casserole World Championship over in France. He was named the PGA Tour Comeback Player of the Year in 1989. He had 2 top 10 finishes in majors, both coming in 1990 at the U.S. Open and the PGA Championship. That year, he was named the Georgia Professional Athlete of the Year, and in 2004, he was inducted into the State of Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. In 2006, he was inducted into the Georgia State Golf Association Hall of Fame and named the Comeback Player of the Year on the Champions Tour. Over the course of his PGA and Champions Tour careers, he's had 82 top 10 finishes and 202 top 25s. And like I say, he's a great guy, and I'm so honored to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Timbo, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks for having me on again.
Tim, update us with how you're doing, because the last time we spoke, you got me pretty encouraged about you playing again.
Well, I did too, and unfortunately, my back's not cooperating, but I never give up hope. And, I just want to be able to play with my juniors, because you can teach them so much course management-wise if you can play. But, it really doesn't bother me a lot in day-to-day activities unless I make certain movements. But when I pull out a golf club and go to swing, it lets me know you're a little too old for this, buddy. It says, 3 back surgeries aren't enough. You want another one? Oh, man. How you been?
I've been good, thank you.
When are you going to come down for a lesson? That's what we talked about last time.
I know, and trust me, it's on my list of things to do. There's no way that I'm going to let an opportunity to come spend some time with Tim Simpson get away. So trust me, it's going to happen. I'll let you know, but there's no way that I don't make that happen. Too much of a great honor to spend time with you to not let that go through.
Well, that's very kind of you. I got to listen to the end of John talking. When I think of John Cook, I think of incredibly talented, beautiful short game, and just class. His mother and father are classy. His sister was classy. His wife is classy. They're just good, first-rate people.
I couldn't agree with that. He is just one of the most genuine, fun, great people that I I get the privilege, just like you, that I get the privilege of getting to spend some time with. So very blessed to have John and you as part of the show.
John, he doesn't want any credit, but John has never gotten enough credit, him and Mark O'Meara, for really turning Tiger into a great wedge player. Tiger was not a great wedge player when he got on tour. If you remember, he had tremendous distance control issues, and they taught him how to flight the ball and how to hit different shots. And, you know, John and Mark were both magicians with the wedges. And John's never gotten enough credit for that.
Tim, I want to get your thoughts, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the last time I think you said you don't even watch much tournament golf on TV anymore. Is that right? And did you spend any time watching the Ryder Cup?
You know, I watched a little bit of it, bits and pieces. The young man that I teach, he asked me when I was working with him one day, "What'd you think about the captain's picks?" And I'm like, "Who were they?" You know, I mean, I just don't keep up with it that much. You know, I was thrilled for the Americans, and no credit to me, but I've been saying for 30 years that they ought to pick the hottest players going. You know, they have always picked guys that maybe were beyond their prime, that they said, well, you know, they have great records in the Ryder Cup. Man, I want a young gun that is full of confidence and winning and lighting it up. And that's what Strick did this year. He picked some young studs that weren't intimidated, weren't afraid, and just went out there and played brilliantly.
And Tim, with the great success that you had on the PGA Tour, particularly back in 1985 and again in 89 and 90, I'm surprised you weren't on any of those Ryder Cup teams. Were you disappointed by that?
Well, it was a dagger in my heart when I missed it in 91, because I'd led the tour in top tens in 89 and 90 combined. I had won 3 times and lost 2 sudden death playoffs, and all I had to do in 91 after the Bob Hope, where I lost by a shot, was have one more top 10 finish in like 6 months. And I felt like, you know, I could do that with a 7-iron, you know, because I was just playing fantastic. And lo and behold, after the Masters is when I went turkey hunting, and that's when I got Lyme disease. And it hit me really fast. I mean, within 6 weeks, I mean, I was shaking horribly. I'd lost tremendous big muscle strength in my body. I know I went down to the Houston Sports Clinic in Columbus, and I'd done some strength testing a couple of years before that, and they had me do all kind of strength testing, and I'd lost 60% of my big muscle strength in my body.
Wow.
And for a guy that there was never enough hours in the day to practice, you know, I got to where I couldn't even hit 50 balls anymore, you know, and it really took its toll on my health and ultimately my career. But, you know, I was blessed. And now I'm just trying to share my knowledge with some young people and help them achieve some of the things that I was fortunate enough to achieve.
And speaking of that, Tim, I read early in your career you were mentored by Sam Snead and J.C. Snead. What was it like spending time with those 2 legends and having them as mentors, and what did they teach you?
Oh, my gosh. People, you know, I've heard club professionals, teachers for 40 years say it's a shame Sam couldn't teach. You know, let me tell you what Sam could teach. He maybe didn't say it as eloquently as some of the teachers, but the lessons he gave me and the things he showed me. And for whatever reason, JC had told him about me. JC and I would play every Tuesday morning. Anybody that wanted to gamble, they could come on and we'd take them on. And JC told Sam, he said, you got to see this young kid out here on tour. He said, you ought to see this kid hit a golf ball. And he said he's there when they open the range at 7 a.m. and they run him off at dark. And so JC broke his wrist 2 or 3 days after he finished second in the U.S. Open at Cherry Hills in Denver. And I called him when I heard about it. This was years before cell phones. And I said, is it true? And he said, yeah. He said, hey, do me a favor. He said, come up here and help me bale hay. He's got a magnificent farm. And he said, bring your clubs because Uncie's in town. That's what he calls Sam, Uncie, short for uncle. And so we're at the house, and we just finished dinner, like Friday night. Phone rings, and JC said, yeah, just a minute. And he said, come here. So I walk over there, and Sam said, Tim, how you doing, son? I said, good, Mr. Snead. How are you? He said, you want to play golf in the morning? I'm like, well, let me check my schedule. I dropped the phone and fainted. It was like playing with the Lord, and that started an incredible friendship. And I became, I guess you would say, like a grandson to him. And whenever he was still playing some on the PGA Tour, 5, 6, 8 tournaments a year. And whenever he'd get there, he'd ask the locker room attendant, "Where's Timmy Simpson?" And he'd find me, and off we'd go. And oh my gosh, he was unbelievable. Two things that the world doesn't know about Sam Snead is in 6 different decades as a professional, he never had a callus on either hand. And the second thing is he never pitched with a sand wedge. He could do stuff that Tiger can't do with a pitching wedge around the green. And people are like, well, why didn't he pitch with a sand wedge? Well, in the late 30s, early 40s, it wasn't until the late 30s or early 40s that Gene Sarazen invented the sand wedge. And Sam had grown up pitching with a pitching wedge. And he'd hit this little dead-handed shot that was like you dropped the ball out of your pocket. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And the most incredible hands and the most incredible shoulder turn I've ever seen. I mean, he turned like a 20-year-old kid when he was in his 70s. He was totally double jointed throughout his whole body, and he didn't have to stretch. He was just incredible.
And speaking of that, and Tim, I've talked about this for years on this show, but I don't think enough people know how great Sam Snead was. I mean, most of us know he won 82 times on the PGA Tour and 7 major championships, but he was a guy that was a competitor on tour well into his 60s. I mean, he finished 3rd in the 74 PGA Championship at 62 years of age. If people think about Phil Mickelson winning at 51, think about what it would be like if Phil made another run 11 years from now. Talk about Sam and some of the other things you mentioned, his soft hands and the wedge. Talk about some of the other things that made Sam so great.
He just had a brilliant common sense about him. He never got ultra technical. One year at the Masters, it was Wednesday, and I came walking into the locker room, and the gentleman that ran the locker room said, "Mr. Simpson, Mr. Snead was asking where you're at." I said, "Where's he at?" He said, "He's in there eating lunch with the squire." That's what they called Gene Sarazen. So I walked in, and he said, "Hey, Timmy, you know the squire, don't you?" I said, "Hey, Mr. Sarazen, how are you?" So I sat down with him. He said, "How you hitting it, son?" I said, "Not very good, Sam. I'm hooking it." He said, "Go on out yonder to the range. I'll be out there in a minute." So I walk out there, get some balls, and there's nobody out there except on the far end of the range is Tom Watson, just the two of us. Sam comes walking out there, and he asks one of the attendants, "Give me a chair, please." And he gets him a chair, and he sits down, right on the other side of my golf balls where he's facing, at my chest while I'm hitting. And, 2 balls. He said, "Son, there's nothing the matter with your swing." He said, "It's your rhythm." He said, "The golf swing is like a waltz." He said, "It's na, 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 na." He said, "It's not rock and roll." He just slowed the dadgum club down. And I didn't play great that week, but I made the cut. I never played good in the Masters, but there was common sense stuff like that. And I still think today, my biggest complaint with the young guys on tour is if they more of them would swing 85% until they really need to dip in the gas tank, for the extra 15 on a par 5, maybe they can get home or something. But the analogy that I give, especially to young people and to amateurs, is if you're lucky enough to have a Ferrari or a Corvette, any type of exotic car, if you ran it redlined constantly, it's just a matter of time before it blows up. Well, if you're swinging 110% or swinging like Bryson DeChambeau, it's coming. You're going to hit it out of bounds sooner or later or in the water. And I just have always lived, and I still believe, 85%, and if you were lucky enough, y'all were talking about Tom Weiskopf earlier, he was one of those players that truly had another 15 or 20 yards anytime he wanted. And those players I was always envious of, because with me it was like, I was just average distance. And I was taught, my dad used to tell me, son, let the club do the work.
Yeah.
And I never tried.
Same.
I never tried to kill him. Yeah. Because I knew if I could get it in the fairway, now the ball was in my court. Because you put an iron in my hand, it ain't gonna be good for you. That was the strength of my game. So for me, it was just get it in the short grass and let's go from there.
Tim, talking about how we were taught and what it was like back in the day. I mean, right now everyone is so fixated on advances in drivers and irons and the golf ball. But one of the things we don't talk enough about is how advanced putters are nowadays. And I remember when I first started playing, I used a small bullseye putter. That thing had a sweet spot about the size of a penny. What did you grow up putting with? And did you use a bullseye at one time?
I did use a bullseye. I used both the bullseye and the female model. If you remember, they called it the Latham. I used the female model too. It was a little bit different shape. But I still have, I was an 88-13 or an 88-02 putter, like Crenshaw, the heel shafted putter. Mickelson's won umpteen tournaments with one. I still have probably 5 or 6 of them in my basement. I got 2 in the bedroom I've been putting with the last couple of days. So yeah, I mean those putters, they do have a tiny sweet spot, but it's like you can still make it with them.
Tim, because you are one of the best ball strikers ever, and what that tells me is you got center club face contact nearly every time. You talk about how dangerous you were with an iron in your hands. Most of us were lucky to hit it there a few times around. Give us a lesson. What can we do better so we can get more consistent center of the club face contact?
I think for starters, remember last time you asked me for a tip before we hung up, and I said grip the club lightly. That was a Sam Sneadism there. And you cannot, if you can take a golf ball or a rock in your yard and grip it tight and try to throw it. It's impossible. You have to grip it light to be able to release the club. And as Sam told me, he said, son, when you get under pressure, it's natural for your grip pressure to get tighter. So you want to start lighter to begin with. And then I would go back to with the irons and even with the driver, keep 85% in mind. My dad would say, swing within yourself, son. And I just think the game is going in the wrong direction, with the emphasis on driving. I mean, the bottom line is, it's still a matter of getting it in the hole. And, you've had guys that aren't long hitters that have had fantastic careers, Zach Johnson being one. I think that there's too much emphasis on distance now. And as we talked about last time I was on the show, yes, the clubs are incredible. Yes, they're computer designed. And yes, they're jack strong. A 7-iron is a 5.5 iron of 20 years ago. But the bottom line is, to me, it's the ball. The ball is so far out of control. And to be quite honest, based on an email I got about 16 months ago from the PGA Tour, they don't want to do anything about it because it helps in the ratings. But from the time I was 16 until I was old and chubby on the Champions Tour, my 7-iron was 155. And you say, how did it not shorten up? Well, because the clubs got stronger, the ball got hotter, so it went farther. So now when I watch guys like Ricky Fowler that are 5'7", wearing high heels, carrying it 310, 315 in the air and hitting 200-yard 7-irons, I just can't relate to it, Chris. It's just like another sport to me.
Tim, for our listeners who are interested in getting lessons from you, either for themselves or their junior player, how can they get in contact with you and get on your lesson tee?
Well, they can call Harbor Club at Lake Oconee, and they can get them in touch with me, or they can email me at timbogolf99@gmail.com. And, I love teaching. I remember helping men at Ansley Golf Club in Atlanta when I was 14 years old, and they'd say, come down to the practice tee and give me a lesson. I've always been intrigued. John was talking about Tom Weiskopf's knowledge and love of architecture even 30 years ago, before he became one of the all-time amazing architects. I was that way with teaching. I just love to teach. I love the little intricacies about the swing. And I'm a big believer in, if you can feel it, you can change it. If I can say, Chris, let me show you, try this drill right here. And you say, that feels weird. I'm like, yeah, but that's what I want you to feel. For me, to put you on a TrackMan, and say you're 1.24 degrees inside on the takeaway and your club face is, 0.9 degrees on downward at impact, how does that help you? The bottom line is I got to give you some meat and potatoes that you can go out and play with. And certainly if you're a competitive player, a top amateur or PGA Tour player or a young pro, your livelihood demands it. I mean, you have to go out and make money. So I believe in keeping it simple and just giving you little feels. I mean, that's the way some of the greatest teachers I've had the privilege of knowing in my life are. That's the way Butch Harmon is. He's considered the best at best, and Butch keeps it very, very simple. It would shock amateurs to know how simple he keeps it.
Tim, I'm looking forward to having you as a more regular guest next season. Every time you come on the show, you always make the segment so much fun, and we learn something too. You're absolutely spectacular, my friend. I hope we get the privilege of having you more frequently when we start season 9.
Well, it's very flattering, Chris, and you do an incredible job, and I know you keep people on their toes listening to your next words. I mean, you have great guests, and glad to hear a couple buddies of mine were on tonight, and you just do a great job. It's my pleasure and my honor to be on any time you want me.
Well, I appreciate that very much, my friend. Stay safe out there. All the best to you and your family. Look forward to catching up with you again soon, Tim.
And come see me and let me work with you before it gets cold.
Indeed. I can't wait.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much,
Tim.
Chris.
You betcha.
Bye-bye.
That's the great Tim Simpson, folks, and one of the all-time great ball strikers and just great human beings on the planet. And there's no way I let that invitation get away from me. So look to working with Tim and then having him on as a more regular guest when we come back for season number 9 in March. Okay, before I get to my next guest, Owen Brown, I want to remind you about a few more of our sponsors, starting with our friends over at Finn Cycles. Are you like me, always considering new golf equipment, maybe a new driver? Well, let me reset your thinking because I discovered Squares golf shoes. The patented square toe provides balance, stability, and a wider base for increased connection to the ground, effectively increasing your swing speed by 2.2 miles per hour and an average of 9 yards of distance. Independent testing proves it. That's right. It's proven in science. Go to squares.com, that's SQAIRZ.com, and get Squares 30-day money-back guaranteed. Use promo code DISTANCE for $20 off. Remember, distance comes from swing speed, and swing speed comes from your connection to the ground. And folks, I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't experience it for myself. I've never felt more stable in my golf swing, which allows me to swing faster and launch it further. Squares, the distance golf shoe. And folks, this segment of the show is sponsored by our friends over at the PGA Tour Superstore.
This segment of the show is brought to you by the PGA Tour Superstore. See why golfers everywhere are proud to call PGA Tour Superstore their golf pro shop. Visit them online at PGATourSuperstore.com. Now back to Chris and more of the show.
Okay, now back in making his 10th appearance with me here on Next on the Tee is Olin Brown. Let me remind you about Olin's background. He's from Washington, D.C., played his college golf at Occidental College out in L.A. He joined the golf team as a sophomore and gradually moved his way up to being their number one player. He was named a first-team All-Conference, All-SCIAC in 1980 and 1982. He was inducted into their Golf Hall of Fame in 1997, and their Golf Annual MVP Award is now named in his honor. He turned pro in 1984. He won 4 times out on the Korn Ferry Tour, twice in 1991, once in 93, and once in 96. He won 3 times out on the regular tour. In 2005, he won the PGA Tour Comeback Player of the Year award. And over the course of his playing career, he's had 5 wins, 48 top 10 finishes, and 110 top 25s. Included in those 5 wins are 2 so far out on the Champions Tour, including the 2011 U.S. Senior Open and the 2015 Greater Gwinnett Championship here in Atlanta. And I'm honored to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, how are you, my friend?
Chris, what's happening? How are you, bud?
I'm fantastic. How are you? How are things going out there?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Things are going okay. I was just kind of eavesdropping on what you and Tim were talking about earlier. There's a lot of wisdom there in what Tim had to say. We're in a different time zone, a different era with modern golf, but, what he was talking about, his relationship with guys like Sam Snead and stuff like that, that gets lost when generations skip one another. And there's an awful lot of cool stuff there. Golf is such a great word of mouth game. And I love hearing stories like that. So good for you for putting them on the show and talking about that.
Well, let's take that a step further. As he got to spend time with Sam Snead and J.C. Snead, some of the legends out on tour, did you get an opportunity to have a mentor like that? Were there guys that, a previous generation or whatnot that were around that gave you some pointers and kind of took you under their wing?
Well, I can promise you there's nobody who's ever played golf at any level like the PGA Tour who hasn't had somebody from an earlier generation influence him or her and what we have done. And, I've had some great mentors. I've had the chance to sit down and talk to some incredible people. Tony Penna, who's a name that doesn't get a lot of credit for being the kind of instructor that he was, but he was a gifted, talented player who really made his bones as the preeminent club maker of his time. And, the nuggets that you get to glean from a person like that and the stories that he would tell about, the Tam O'Shanter and other events that he played over the course of his career. And like I said, those have legs and there's real guts in the experiences of other players. And I think that any young player who can kind of connect with an older player and glean information from him is going to be better off for it.
And the last time that we had the privilege of spending some time with you was back in early April. And here we are. This has been an elongated Champions Tour season, elongated PGA Tour season. We have a whole wraparound season going on. Talk about the longevity of this season, and has it been a bit more of a grind than it has been in the past?
No, I mean, it's dates, so it's no different really. You're just cobbling together, 2 limited seasons. So I don't look at it that way. I look at every tournament as an opportunity to do better than I did the last week. And, some days you get out there and you actually do that, and other weeks you get out there and you've experienced the struggle that other high tournament golfers go through. So no, I don't see that. It just, the numbers tend to, it's not quite double because we have like 28, 27 week seasons out here. So we have a 43 or 44 week double year. So, we lost a bunch of tournaments, but it basically ends up being, the season that we all compete within, and it is what it is.
I know when I was talking to Tim in the last segment, one of the things we talked about was driving accuracy over distance. And I noticed, like in the last tournament you just finished up with the Furyks and Friends this past weekend, in the second and third round, you hit 80% and 93% of your fairways. I know you may not be the longest guy off the tee anymore, but is that a focus now? But boy, if I can get the ball in the short grass a bunch of times, that now becomes my advantage. While guys are maybe bombing it, but hitting it over in the rough, I'm going to have a better shot and a better angle. So that's my opportunity to win golf tournaments now.
Well, I mean, that's always been my focus. I've never been able to overpower a golf course. And the problem with that is that, you know, the game has evolved. And so while Tim was talking about launch monitors and, you know, angles of attack and this and that and the other thing, the bottom line is that you know, equipment has enabled the stronger players to excel, and you have to find a way to fit what you do best within the context of what, you know, has an application in tournament play. And it gets harder and harder for, you know, there used to be the expression horses for courses. Well, that doesn't apply any longer. It's, you know, how far can you hit it? How close can you get it to the green? And how many birdie opportunities can you give yourself? So, you know, the game, the philosophy of the game of golf has changed. It's evolved, and it's become a different kind of a game. And this is why you see, you know, the success of a guy like Bryson DeChambeau, you know, Phil Mickelson too. You know, these guys figured out that the closer that they can get it to where they, you know, where they want to be with their tee shot, you know, the shorter shot that they have into the green, the bigger advantage they have in playing a golf course. And so, you know, while some people decry the fact that shot making has become a lost art, well, shot making's just become different. You know, now you're trying to figure out how to control the ball out of the first cut of the rough or out of the trees and get it close to the hole so that you can give yourself maximum birdie opportunity. You know, I think that the governing bodies are trying to look at this and trying to figure out a way to, you know, to put things on a more even keel. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but the bottom line is that guys have gotten strong, and the equipment allows them to swing freely at the ball, and they're taking advantage of it, and you're seeing the results. I mean, look, Sung J M last week, I think he shot 61 the first round, shot 62 in the final round, and won by 5 shots. So that tells you, I mean, I can't ever recall, certainly in the time that I played on tour, that a guy shot a 61 and a 62 in the same tournament on tour. So things are definitely changing.
And we continue to see a guy like Bernhard Langer near the top of the leaderboard week in and week out on the Champions Tour. The guy finished 7th last week, and he's a couple of years older than you. When you guys go out to dinner at night, you're looking over to see where Bernhard's going and then what he's ordering, and say, you know what he's having.
No, I think people have been trying to poison his food for a long time. Nobody's succeeded thus far. You know, I mean, the guy's unbelievable. He's a menace. The guy's a freak show on wheels. He's got, you know, a lot like Tiger Woods had Jack in his sights. Bernhard's got Hale Irwin in his sights, and he wants to be the guy that goes down in history as the most prolific winner on the PGA Tour Champions. And, you know, he shows up every single week and prepares like it's his first event ever. And he shows up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And you know what? More oftentimes than not, he's in the mix.
And I saw the Champions Tour did a kind of a funny video with Bernhard and Tom Lehman trying to prank the other players. They dressed Bernhard up like a maintenance guy and had him do a whole bunch of things, spray water on Darren Clarke and make noise during Padraig Harrington and Phil Mickelson's swing. Is that a side of him that we don't see? Is he a prankster?
For sure. Bernhard has a sneaky sense of humor. He's a really good guy. He's engaging. He's funny. He's super polite, and he's a gentleman, you know, and he's everything that everybody should aspire to as a golf professional. He's thorough. He's professional. He's welcoming. if you have an issue, you can approach Bernhard at lunch and sit down and say, Bernhard, I wanted to ask you a question or two. And he would drop what he's doing and spend his time. And you find a lot of those kind of guys out there, you know, guys that you wouldn't expect, who are eminently approachable and are willing to pass along the lessons that they learned along their route. And I think that's one of the things that makes our game such a great game.
I know Phil Mickelson obviously won this past weekend, his third victory in 4 Champions Tour events. And we all know Phil likes to have fun. He's a big trash talker and always very funny. And on all the years that you are on the regular tour with him and now on the Champions Tour, what's your favorite Phil Mickelson story?
Oh, well, you know what? There are a million of them. But the truth is that, you know, you can engage Phil on any level, right? You start a conversation about the debt ceiling or about, you know, the national park system or whatever it is. And, you know, he's already studied it. He's got his point of view on it. And you can start a conversation and get into a disagreement on that particular topic. You'll find that halfway through, the tide has turned and he's arguing your perspective and you're having to defend his. And so he's an incredible debater. He's a smart guy. He does his homework. He's got his opinions about things. He's a lot of fun to talk to about stuff. And, you know, he's just another guy that, you know, he's the ultimate entertainer, you know, and people see that. He's not shy about it. And he's great for golf.
Oh, I was talking to Scott McCarron a few weeks ago here on the show before the Ryder Cup, and I asked him why the Champions Tour didn't have a Ryder Cup-like event. I think we'd all love to see you guys out there rekindling those rivalries. And he said, you know what, I think there's something in the works. And now we hear about the World Champions Cup, which is going to come next year in November 2022. Talk about what you know about that event, and does that team event for 2022 maybe add another goal for you for next year?
For years and years, golf didn't have the Olympics. And for years and years, golf didn't have the President's Cup. It was just the Ryder Cup. And for years before it became the United States against the European continent, it was just the United States against Great Britain and Ireland. And so as golf has grown, so have the international competitions. And the thing about golf is it's an individual competition. Weekly, we're out there competing against one another for the championship, for the prize money, for, you know, basically our entire careers. And as golf has evolved, so have the idea of international competition and team competition. And I just think it's great because it gives the players an opportunity to do something that we really haven't had a chance to do since college. You know, being part of a team in golf and an individual sport is certainly a unique opportunity for a lot of players. I was involved in a team competition as an assistant captain on Paul Azinger's 2008 team, and I can just tell you that there's nothing like it that I've ever experienced, nothing else like it that I've ever experienced in golf. And so for guys at our level, most of them who will compete were part of a Ryder Cup or a President's Cup. Certainly almost no player on the PGA Tour Champions will have had the opportunity to compete in the Olympics. As time goes by, that'll change. But, you know, it gives players an opportunity to get together with other players and experience something that they haven't had the chance to otherwise. And I think it's just great.
Oh, just a couple of more before I let you go. And one of my favorite follows on Twitter is at Super70s Sports. And you retweeted one of their tweets, which was, when I was a kid, adults didn't give two blanks about safety. No helmets, no seatbelts, ubiquitous secondhand smoke, playgrounds built for Navy SEAL training. But if you tried to use a pair of scissors, then suddenly they feared for your life. What was life like growing up for you? Because that's pretty indicative of what life was like for most of us growing up in the 60s and 70s.
Dude, the front door was to hit your ass on the way out and to lock on the way in. And the rest of the day was outside. And if you didn't come back with skinned elbows and knees and, you know, pine cones in down your shirt and everything else, I mean, we were outdoors playing ball, cruising through the woods, wading in the streams and rivers where I grew up and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's just a part of life. And, you know, there were 3 square meals in the house daily, and the rest of the time your ass was outside, and that was the way it was. And, you know, we live in a different world now. Times have changed for sure. But, yeah, you know, it's like my dad looked at me and he said, I made you. I'll make another one just like you. Don't mess up, right? And so that's just the way life was. And things are a little bit more careful in this day and age. But, yeah, I'm with you. I really like that Twitter site because it has a lot of funny stuff on it.
Before I let you go, update us on how's your son doing? How's Owen Brown Jr.?
He's right in the middle of school, getting ready for the second stage of Korn Ferry, going out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, you know, he's been playing some good golf, playing, you know, again, he's one of those guys who's gotten stuck, locked out the last couple of years because there hadn't been a qualifying school. The European tour is going for 3 consecutive seasons without a qualifying or 2 consecutive seasons. So it'll be 3 consecutive years without a qualifying school. So it's been very difficult for the guys who are trying to make it. And he's excited about the opportunity, and he's going to go out there and get ready for second stage starting the week after this and try and get to finals and get his butt on the Korn Ferry Tour. And, you know, there are a lot of opportunities opening up to young players in golf. You know, the tour, the purses are growing, the tournaments are growing, Korn Ferry the same. And so there's a lot to be thankful for and a lot to be working towards.
Only before I let you go, remind our listeners how they can stay up to date with the great things you're doing and follow you online and on social media.
Follow what's going on in the PGA Tour Champions, and I got a Twitter account, Owen Brown, and you know, I'm not lighting the world on fire, but I'm having a good time doing it, doing the slow burn at the age of 62. But God, I love what I do, and I hope I can do it for a while longer. Hope you'll ask me to come on your show again another time too, because that's the real benchmark. You know, if Chris Mascaro's asking you to come on his show, you're still doing something right.
I appreciate you saying that. It's been 10 times. We had to get you in double digits, and now we'll go for another milestone to make it up to 20. But you're outstanding, my friend. I can't thank you enough for being generous with your time and coming back and being part of the show. You're absolutely one of my favorites.
I'm all for it, man. It's great talking to you always, and it's great to hear some of the things Tim was saying. I share some of his sentiments, you know. I mean, it's a great game, and I encourage everybody who loves sport, loves competition, and loves, you know, the act of trying to get better at something to embrace the game of golf, because it's never solved. It's always a challenge. It's hard work, but boy, the rewards are just tremendous. You know, the self-esteem that you build from trying to figure out how to do something that's so complicated and so difficult, and coming out the other side of it. You know, we get so few opportunities to really relish the accomplishment of what we do, because the rest of the time it's part of the struggle to figure it out. But man, what a great game. Great game.
Couldn't agree more. You're the best, my friend. Stay safe out there. All the best you and your family. Look forward to catching up with you again soon.
You too, bud. Great visiting with you. Take care.
See you. That's a great Owen Brown, folks. What a wonderful human being and what a great player. He continues to be a force out there on the Champions Tour, and looking forward to catching up with him again next season. And hopefully his son gets an opportunity, because he's a wonderful young player as well. But Owen Brown is just one of the most solid human beings you'll ever meet, and someone I'm very privileged to call a friend. Okay, before I get to my next guest, Matthew Lawrence, I want to give a shout out to a couple more of our sponsors, starting with our friends over at 2 Under. 2 Under men's performance briefs are the official underwear of the 2021 U.S. Ryder Cup team, the captain and all vice captains. They are worn by more than 30 players on the PGA and Champions Tour. They are also worn by over 70 NCAA Division I colleges and 17 NFL teams. The Joey Pouch technology provides the ultimate male asset management, delivering maximum comfort, fit, and performance, from the golf course to the boardroom to the bedroom. Find these 2 Under performance men's briefs in over 4,000 golf pro shops nationwide, all Shield sports stores, PGA Tour Superstore, Golf Galaxy, and other fine retailers near you. Go online to 2under.com. That's the number 2, UNDR.com. 2 under performance in your pants. Use code ONTHET20 for a 20% discount at checkouts. Not valid on items already on sale or NCAA licensed briefs.
I also want to welcome a new sponsor to the show, Pine Valley Orthotics, and their founder, Stu Sakowitz. Did your feet, back, knees, and hips stop you from playing good golf or golf at all? Maybe plantar fasciitis or neuropathy is killing your golf game? Then you owe it to yourself to try a pair of Pine Valley Orthotics with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Pine Valley Orthotics are uniquely designed with an energy return system not found in any other product. When you step down, they gently spring back, relieving foot pain and stress, energizing your whole body, and they work. I love my Pine Valley Orthotics. I've got them in my golf shoes, and I've got them in my dress shoes. In fact, Stu Sakowitz, the owner, is so sure that they're going to ease your pain, he's offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you want better balance and stability, treat yourself to a pair of Pine Valley Orthotics today. Go to PineValleyOrthotics.com, and for a limited time, you can get these for only $99 and a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's only $99. Ease your pain, improve your game, and change your life. Only at PineValleyOrthotics.com.
Okay, now back with me is one of my all-time favorite actors, radio hosts, and another one of my favorite people on the planet, and that's Matthew Lawrence. Over the last few years, when I've sat back and thought about which guest do I want to be the last voice you hear at the end of our season, it's been pretty easy for me to decide who that should be. They are 2 guys who are very special and very important to me, and they just happen to be twin brothers, and that's Matthew and Mitch Lawrence. I can't imagine anybody better to end a season with than either of those 2 guys, and tonight, Matthew is joining me. You guys hear me talk about Matthew's show Backspin Golf all the time because it's fantastic and the best way to start your Sunday mornings. You can stream it online by going to WLXG.com or on the WLXG app. The show starts at 8:03 a.m. Eastern Time. Last year, Matthew was recognized by the Kentucky section of the PGA of America as their media representative of the year for his great contributions to the game. Among Matthew's other great works on the screen is his stellar performance as bass player Sal Amato in the movie Eddie and the Cruisers, one of my all-time favorite movies. I think I've seen it 100 times. I could recite lines with Matthew, which might be a fun show for next season. You've probably also seen Matthew on Saturday Night Live, Beverly Hills 90210, One Tree Hill, or 30-something. Matthew has also been a sideline reporter for Duke and now Kentucky basketball. He does a pre- and post-game show for Kentucky basketball. He's a tremendous talent and an even better friend, and I'm very excited to have him back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Matthew, how are you, my friend?
As always, when I join you, I'm exhausted listening to everything that I've done. I'm exhausted. I have no idea how I'm even here. And just so you know, Chris, we have to find a better way, a better phrase than the last voice you'll hear will be Matthew Lawrence. There has to be something different that we can say. Oh, wait, it's for this season. Okay. All right. I get it.
Good call.
It's great to talk to you again, as always. Oh, boy.
Matthew, I want to start our time tonight by going back to the Ryder Cup. And I know many of us, including me, wondered if the U.S. team could even stand to be in the same room together, let alone play together and go out and win. And now that they've done it in dominating fashion, people are wondering if the European team, maybe they can't compete anymore. Maybe they're too old. Guys like Westwood, Poulter, maybe even Sergio might not be around the next time around. And these guys on the U.S. team, now all of a sudden they're young guns and they're going to be, dominating this event for years to come. You buying any of that?
Chris, it's really interesting because leading up to the Ryder Cup, I found myself, and it's not just with golf. I have to say, in a lot of areas, and I'm not really sure if it's because I'm the old guy on the porch now, or, I listen to you with Olin, who, by the way, is so fantastic. I mean, he's so great. Talking about, growing up in the 60s and the 70s, I was already, like in high school in the 60s. I'm what am I, 94 now, I think? Something like that. But I found myself, especially this year, I didn't get as excited about the Ryder Cup as I always have before. I found myself much, much more engaged team. And I don't think that I'm the only, as a matter of fact, I know I'm not the only one that this happened to this year. But I think I should just start out by saying, I'm a little burnt out on the PGA Tour. I know this sounds weird, so I'm glad I have a minute to explain. I'm sick of the drama on the PGA Tour with Bryce Epps and Brooksy and all of that stuff, which carried over, obviously, into the Ryder Cup. Everybody was questioning about what was going to happen in the team and all the things that, our team chemistry and all. I found myself, and I know that you saw it too, following the social media of Team Europe, which was brilliant leading up to the Ryder Cup, and identifying more with the attitude that the European team basically has always had in terms of teamwork and why it's so important to them. And I just, this year, it kind of reached a zenith for me in that way. I was not shocked at all that the United States, I didn't think they'd dominate quite as much as they did, but it didn't shock me that we beat them badly, because it was on home turf, so to speak. And we have great players. I mean, I think 9 out of the top 12 in the world were on the American team. But I found myself much more involved with the European team this year. It was a very, very different feeling for me. I was very happy. I like most of the guys on the American team. I certainly like the young guys that we have playing. I don't mean that at all. I just meant this year was a very different Ryder Cup for me in that way. It was really interesting, and I think it'll be fascinating to see what happens in Rome in a couple of years, because we haven't seen it quite as much, but Europe has some really good young players too. We don't see them quite as much as we see our guys over here, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens in Rome.
And Matthew, I know you're not a Bryson DeChambeau fan. You don't even let your guests on your show use his name when they come on.
Correct.
But
correct.
Did anyone do more for their personal brand exiting the Ryder Cup than Bryson did?
Probably not. You mean with the long drive and all the things that he had going on?
Well, I think we were sort of semi-concerned, obviously, with the team room piece. We talked about that, but, maybe he would even get heckled by the home fans. But he goes out and does things like he did in the singles match where he drives the first green and then he gets his putter and he's walking off and he's raising the putter over his head, I think for 2 reasons. 1, to acknowledge the fans, and 2, to say, see, my next shot on this par 4 is going to be with this putter. And the fans went crazy.
Right. Yeah. I understand what you mean, and I always say this whenever it is that I talk about him. I have nothing but incredible respect and admiration for what he's done in terms of golf, purely in terms of what he's done with his golf game. I think it's incredible to see where he's come from not that long ago, and his decision to remake his body and remake his swing and all the things that he does in terms of, air pressure on every shot and all those things he does. It takes an incredible talent to do what he does. I have never disputed that. I just don't like the guy. I mean, that's we all have these athletes in every sport where we go, the guy's great. I just don't like him. I don't know if it's this or it's that, or that's the way that I've pretty much always felt about him. And it's very hard for me to get excited about him or watch him. even driving the first green. I expected him to drive the first green. And again, it's probably because I'm the old guy on the porch. I enjoy golf, shot making golf. The most thrilling to me. I have always been, since before I started playing golf, which was, 40 years ago, Seve was my idol. I love shot making golf. I still do. There's a big difference. Guys hit it a lot further. I get all of that. But the guys that I love watching are the shot maker guys. And he's not one of them. And I'm not taking anything away from what he does, as I said. But you're probably going to ask me about this. There is zero, and I mean, less than zero, to quote one of my favorite movies, chance that I will be watching that clown show the day after Thanksgiving.
No, you're not watching that?
Zero chance. Zero chance. I have absolutely no interest in seeing that. None. I think because I'm pretty much a golf purist. Anyway, that's how I think of myself. I can be delusional sometimes, but that's the way I feel.
Matthew, I know you grew up a big Sandy Koufax fan, which is fine. He's one of the best pitchers of all time, and he was obviously a Brooklyn Dodger. And when you, I think, became a big fan of his, and you're also a Yankees fan, which isn't fine and doesn't make sense because you can't idolize a Dodger but root for the Yankees. But the Red Sox eliminated the Yankees.
Hold it. No. Wait a minute. Hold it. That's a ridiculous statement. You know I love you like a brother, but what do you mean you can't root for the Yankees and idolize a Dodger? Of course you can. I'll tell you something even more to just shatter your whole Red Sox Yankees thing that you got going on. And I've said this to you before. I'm a die-hard Yankee fan. Die-hard. And I'm rooting for the Red Sox.
Wow.
I like the Red Sox. I always have. Tim Wakefield has been one of my closest friends. I went to college in Boston. I lived there for a year after I got out of college. I was just in Boston a month ago at friends of mine anniversary party, seeing a whole bunch of Boston friends. Now, how is that possible? How could I be a huge,
I don't know,
the biggest Yankee fan? Okay, so put a pin in that balloon you just flew about this rivalry stuff. Okay?
Wow.
It ain't me. Of course I love Sandy Koufax, and of course I'm a Yankee fan. Next question.
I don't know how you do it because you're a better man than I. Because there's no way that I could do that.
Well, most
good
people
for you.
are like that. It's just, I'm an exceptional human being. I mean,
there's
you
no
know
question.
that.
Yeah, absolutely, beyond question.
Whatever.
Of course you are.
Yes.
So
right.
Where I was going with that question, outside of the sarcastic remarks, was as such, you're a great golfer. We all know that by listening to Backspin Golf, how great you are at the game. But have you gone back to New York?
Yeah.
Do you, as a big celebrity that you are, do you get to go and play the Beth Pages and Shinnecock and Winged Foot and all the great golf courses in New York? Have you gotten an opportunity to go back and play those?
You know, that's a great question, and it's why Next on the Tee is the best golf podcast. I guess it has something to do with you, but you know, actually, I have not. I have not. And when I think about, I always say this, I am one of the most blessed people that has ever walked in the things I've gotten to do, because of my acting career and because of people I've met and all those things. I have played golf all over the world, literally. I have played, the only golf course I have played in New York is the Garden City Country Club, which is located in the middle of Long Island and is a historic golf course that was built, I could be wrong about this, but I want to say in the late 1800s. But I have never played any of those great I've played Cypress Point, for goodness sakes. I've gotten on golf courses that, people really don't let people like me on usually. But it's funny because the thing is, I never played golf growing up in New York. I said this to you before. We used to kick the crap out of guys that played golf. I mean, you just didn't do that. I mean, I grew up going into New York City and playing basketball in the playgrounds of New York City. If you played golf, it meant you belonged to a country club. It meant you had money. It meant we didn't have public courses anywhere around where I grew up, and nobody would play anyway. I mean, that sport was. It wasn't until I moved to L.A. In the early '80s, and my brother Mitchie had moved out there before, and he was playing, that I started playing. So I've been on your show so many times, but I'll say this again because I think it's a funny story. There was a guy that we went to high school with named Andy Schuyler, and he was a great athlete, and he was on the golf team at our high school. We used to make fun of him all the time, all of us. And he used to say to my brother Mitch and I, because we were pretty big athletes in high school, we played force. He used to say, my father just wants you to come out to our country club and play golf with him. And we used to say, are you kidding me? There is no freaking way we're going to Seawain Club and play golf with your father. Are you kidding? And years later, after I had started to play, I would go visit my mother in New York, and I would go, where's Andy Schuyler's father? Where is he now? I mean, this is 20 years after I graduated from high school. I want to play the Seawain Club. Where is Andy Schuyler's father when I need him now? But I never really got a chance to play any of those great golf courses in New York. And, there's still a chance. I'm still here. Of course there is. So who knows? Maybe someday.
Matthew, one of the things I think you and I agree on is the wraparound golf season. The wraparound PGA Tour season is, in my opinion, ridiculous. I used to love, this time of year used to be silly season, right? I mean, we'd be looking forward to the skins game or the senior skins game, the 3-tour challenge and stuff like that. Talk about, what we've lost by not having those sort of fun events at this time of year.
Well, I think there's no off season anymore. I mean, one of the great things, obviously, we have in baseball, we have the playoffs going on now, and then the World Series. And then you have some time off so that spring comes, and in February, training camp opens. You've had a chance to back away from the game that we all love of baseball and get involved in basketball and football and other sports. And then when training camp opens, you can't wait for it to get going. That was part of what used to happen with golf. It was only a couple of months, but the season didn't start till the Tournament of Champions in Hawaii in January. And so you had a little bit of time to just take it easy. And if you lived in a place that was nice enough weather, you could keep playing. But, now here's the most ridiculous thing. And you and I have talked about this before. The whole FedEx Cup idea, which I get it. I get having those 3 events at the end of the year and creating, the biggest purse and all the stuff. The whole thing, we had our first tournament of the new season in October. And on the first freaking day of that tournament, maybe it was the second, they already put up a FedEx Cup points list because somebody shot 67 on the first day. And it starts then, and it doesn't end until the Tour Championship. It's absurd. I'm sorry, my voice is being raised a little because this drives me insane. And that's what this has become. And these tournaments, look, the Shriners and the tournaments that are part of next season already. See, that's it. It's not the silly season. It's not the wraparound season. It's next season already. And these tournaments do a great deal for charity, and I understand that. But in terms of the golf, it's absurd to me. It's absurd. Let's just go back to, it'll never happen, but, the Tournament of Champions in January in Hawaii. That's how I feel about it. And the whole FedEx Cup thing to me is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm with you. I agree
get a little
with you.
Carried away with the FedEx Cup stuff.
Matthew, switching gears a little bit. I saw today that Billy Joel put out a new video for his song, Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. The video is fantastic, folks. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on YouTube. But Matthew, a guy who played with Billy Joel for many years is a good friend of yours, and that's a guy who's also in the Brooklyn Music Hall of Fame, and that's Liberty DeVito. Talk about that and how you guys met.
Here's the amazing thing about my friendship with Liberty. I met Liberty, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4. When you get as old as I am, Chris, and this will be a while for you before you reach my age, the years kind of blend into each other. Could have been 20 years ago for all I know. But I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 4. I was invited to be involved in a Comic-Con with, all these people show up, and it's people from TV and movies and all kind of wrestlers and all kinds of different things at these conventions that go on. And I was invited, and I got there, and Liberty was one of the musicians, one of the people there. And you sit and you sign autographs and you take pictures with people, and hopefully you make a lot of money while you're there. And it was 3 days. And Liberty and I got really close during that 3 days. We had some amazing conversations. A lot of it started because we were actually at dinner. I had only said hello to him and just talked to him for a minute. And we were sitting at this dinner table, and I believe how it started was he said something to me, and I said, "I'm a bass player. You can't talk to bass players like that. You drummers are ridiculous." Or I said something because I played the bass in Eddie and the Cruisers, and got us into the movie. And we started talking about, the music and John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band and Southside Johnny and everything connected with that movie. And that's really how it started. We spent a lot of time together over those couple of days that we were together. That's the only time we have ever spent together, ever. Wow. And yet, it's like my friendship with people on Twitter or you or people that I have I love that guy so much for so many reasons. And we talk on the phone, and we're on Twitter together and social media, and we text together, but we've only actually physically been together for 3 days.
Wow.
And every time I say something like that, I just shake my head because I have another way that I'm very blessed. I have so many relationships like that with people, that physically I haven't. I have a lot of friends that I've never met, like a certain person I may be talking to. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
Matthew, I know we talked a bit about this last time, but I want to touch on it again because it is a really big deal. Last year, you were recognized by the Kentucky section of the PGA of America as their media representative of the year. And I bring that back up because, like I say, A, it's a big deal, and B, because you were a great actor in Hollywood for many years. You got into golf late in life, mostly because you were playing in celebrity, golf events, things that you've talked about before, and then you fell in love with the game. And what you've given back through your show, Backspin Golf, and your support of junior players in your area in Kentucky and the women's side of the game and entertaining all of us on Sunday mornings has been phenomenal. I hope you allow yourself to understand how important you've become to the game of golf and its growth, not only in Kentucky, but around the world because of the power of the internet and our ability to listen to your show online, and not just when it's live. But you've done so much for the game of golf. I hope you realize how important you are.
You know, one of the things that happens as you get older is things choke you up. Like right now, like what you just said. You know how I love you and I appreciate you for saying that. But I can honestly say that it is absolutely nothing compared to what the game of golf has given me. Extremely grateful that because of the platform that I was given some 7 years ago now, I think, I'm able to do certain things for junior golf. That's the most important thing to me right now, is seeing kids learn how to play the game. And I can interact with people and get people to do certain things. And I want to talk to you about one of those things. I hope I don't forget. The game of golf has given me the incredible friendships, as you said, from all over the world, of people that I've never met and yet do more for me and my life than I could ever give back. I mean, I certainly appreciate you saying that, but boy, do I feel it's the other way around. I'm very grateful for the Kentucky PGA section to do that, but that's what I said when they gave me that award. I mean, golf has my whole life playing the game. Everything that has happened in my life has been because of golf. Everything. I met my wife at a golf tournament. I have my 2 incredible sons because I met her at a golf tournament. The job I have now, my job for 10 years at Duke basketball, was because I played in the Duke Children's Classic and was fortunate enough to get friendly with Coach K and develop a relationship with him. I've traveled all over the world because of golf tournaments, celebrity golf tournaments. 1 or 2 years in there, I didn't buy a golf shirt because I kept getting free golf shirts from celebrity golf tournaments. It was incredible. I didn't even have to buy golf shirts. You know, I don't know what else to say. I appreciate you saying that, but I truly think of it the other way around.
To go back to, I think, the point that you wanted to make as well, talk about what you're doing for the junior game and how your show Backspin Golf has become a title sponsor for the local junior tournaments there.
Well, I got very friendly with a guy named Chris Rettel, who has put on an incredible series of junior golf tournaments. There's actually 2 that I'm involved with Chris and the Bluegrass Junior Golf Tour. And that is something, see, this is how golf works. This is amazing. Because of Backspin Golf and something I saw on Twitter about a series of events, a junior tour called the Irish Junior Open Series, I was able to connect with Michael Gallagher, who is in Northern Ireland and runs the most incredible junior golf tour in the world. And I got in touch with him and he came on my show and I spoke to him. This is, again, I can't believe this happens, but the connection was clearer than the connection you and I have right now. We did it on Facebook or Skype or however we did it. And Michael and I have gotten very, very friendly. Well, unbeknownst to me even, they kind of did this in secret. Chris Rettel got in touch with Michael Gallagher. And now Michael has not only the Irish Junior Open Tour, but he has an event called the Champion of Champions. And it's junior golfers from all over the world that have to qualify to play in Ireland in the Champion of Champions event. And next season, Chris, and right here in Kentucky, our junior golf tour, the Bluegrass Junior Golf Tour, is going to be a qualifying event for the Champion of Champions event in Ireland.
Wow.
I mean, I am just saying it is flabbergasting to me. And again, this is the power of the internet and social media with all the horrible things that we all know about living in the world we live in today. This kind of stuff, you know, you can't make this stuff up. And so there are going to be children, young golfers from Kentucky who are going to qualify to play in that event in Ireland next summer. Also, here's an idea from that I saw on Twitter a couple of days ago. This is another example. I'm involved with the First Tee of Lexington, and we all know about the incredible work that the First Tee does all over, everywhere. And the great people at First Tee of Lexington, Ryan Ballingy, who hosts just an incredible conglomerate of golf media called Golf News Net. I saw on Twitter he had an interaction with somebody, and this is bad for me because I should. It may have been Trevor Reese, who has been on my show a million times, another wonderful golf writer. They were talking about what we should all do, all golfers. All the balls that we have that have a little scuff or a little dirty, or we've played 10 rounds with them, or we all have a ton of balls like that. We should find a way at each of the golf courses we play to set up like a big barrel or some kind of container and leave the balls at the golf course, at each of the golf courses, for whatever first tee is involved in our city or wherever we live for junior golf. Because so many of these kids have nothing. They have no equipment. They don't have golf balls. They don't have, and if there's a little nick on the golf ball, it's fine. I mean, you know, if I drive around at the golf course I play every weekend and I find 10 balls in the rough every single round. And some of them are like new and some of them aren't, but they're still good golf balls. And I thought, what a great idea this is. So today I reached out to my friend Stephen, who's the head of the First Tee of Lexington, and I'm going to work with him on trying to go around to the 5 incredible public golf courses that are partners of mine on Backspin Golf, the Lexington Parks and Rec golf courses, the public courses here, and figure out a way, starting in the spring or even in the next couple months before we have ice storms and we can't play, to start putting kind of a distribution center at each one of these golf courses where when you play a round, if you play a round of golf with one ball, which most of us don't do, except me, I do.
Of course.
Of course. The end of the round, take your ball and drop it in the barrel or whatever we have at the golf course. If you go into your golf bag. If you have 5 of those balls at the end of a round, take them, dump them in there. And think about all the golf balls we could give to all the first tees everywhere, really. There's so many ideas like this that we can come up with, and it's just really cool. It's really cool. Golf social media is really something. Anyway.
That's a fantastic idea. Kudos to you guys for coming up with that. I think that is something we should absolutely do everywhere. Why not? What do you do with the golf ball anyway? I mean, you may keep some for a shag bag, but after that, what are you doing with them? You're throwing them away?
Yeah.
You know, who knows?
Yeah.
But why do that when somebody else could benefit?
I have 50 of them in my trunk. I have 50. They keep rattling around, and I keep going, why don't I take these out and put them in the garage? Well, you know what? Tomorrow, maybe I'll go over to Pick-A-Dome and drop them all off and say, hold these for the first tee.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Beautiful.
Yep.
Matthew, before I let you go, remind our listeners how they can listen to your fantastic show, Backspin Golf, plus follow you on social media as well, my friend.
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at Real Lauro, Lauro, and the number 5. And Backspin Golf is on WLXG.com or the WLXG. I believe, just like you, I believe this Sunday's show will be my final show, taking a little break until January. I think I'm going to take a couple months off because I'm getting the basketball season's going to start here. I do a pre and post game basketball show for Kentucky basketball. That's going to start up in a couple of weeks. So I think I may take a little break here, as you're going to do. But they can go to WLXG and we have all the podcasts that I've done listed there. You can pull it up and listen anytime you want.
Matthew, you're the best, my friend. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. It's always a huge thrill to get to spend some time with you. You're fantastic.
Well, you know how I feel about you, Chris. And I mean, this is the best golf podcast there is. And I'm always honored and humbled that you ask me, especially when it's the last voice that people will hear. And I'm glad that it's my voice that they hear. I hope they enjoy it, but I'll be talking to you real soon. And thanks a million, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. And I love you. I hope you have a great show this coming weekend. I'll be listening, and stay safe, my friend. All the best to you and your family.
Thanks. You too, pal. Talk to you soon.
See you, Matthew. That's the great Matthew Lawrence, folks. And like I say, when I sit back and I think about who should be the last guest voice you hear at the end of one of our seasons, it's been Mitch in the past, and now Matthew, two of the absolute great human beings on this, great friends. And like Matthew said, I mean, Matthew and I have become really good friends. Mitchell and I have become really good friends. We've never seen each other. We've never met in person, but we've talked on the phone a million times. We text with each other. We go back and forth on social media and things of that nature. But they are two of the finest human beings on this planet. I love those guys like brothers. They've been so supportive and so good to me. And I just love everything that they do. Mitch's show is called Talking Golf Getaways. You've heard me talking about that many, many times. What a great job he does marrying golf and travel on that show with his co-host Darren Bunch. And then Matthew with his show Backspin Golf, and he does a drive time show as well. But everything that those two guys do is fantastic and special because they're both really special people. And I can't thank Matthew enough for coming back and being part of the show. We'll catch up again soon. All right, my friends, it is time for me to put a bow not only on this episode, but of this season of Next on the Tee. My sincere thanks again tonight to John Cook, Tim Simpson, Olin Brown, and Matthew Lawrence for joining me. And folks, your support this season has been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate all of you so very much. I'll be switching over to our football podcast Thursday Night Tailgate in a couple of weeks. If you love the NFL, we talk with the legends of the game each week to hear their stories and insights for what's going on around the league, plus their days in college football as well. My co-host Bob Lazari and I will kick off that show on Thursday, October 28th. And our guests that night are going to be former Giants and Browns running back Randy Manier, former Patriots running back Tony Collins, Pittsburgh Sports Talk radio host Paul Alexander, and former Dolphins tackle Richmond Webb. Folks, it has been such a great season here on Next on the Tee. My thanks again to all of you and to all of my guests for making this show so much fun to do. As always, thank you for choosing to listen to this show tonight. I really appreciate the fact that you continue to make Next on the Tee a part of your golfing content. Until next time, hit 'em straight, my friends.